Hello, my friends. This is, once again, the voices in your headphones. Now, this time we're going to be... Wait, hang on. I almost forgot. Let's just... There we go. Being a face and a void is fine and dandy, but it feels good to stretch out my legs after a solid 10 seconds of having them. Now, let's see. Next in the list is... Oh. Right. This will be an interesting one. Now, I want to preface this by saying this review is going to be fairly harsh. Honestly, I'm probably going to be mocking a good amount, though while I'm going to be heavily criticizing this and maybe getting a bit petty at points, I encourage everybody to not be scared to try and create something. If it's your first time making something, it's probably going to suck. Then you'll have someone like me ripping into it over the massively glaring issues. But from that, you can learn what you did wrong and make something even better. That's just the nature of art, sucking until you don't. Though, usually criticism is a little more kind, but hey, I'm just here to have fun. This time, I'm gonna be somewhere between dissecting and eviscerating this current subject. Without further ado, let's get a record spinning and start with Cave of Shadows and what not to do in an ARG. So, for a bit of background, Cave of Shadows started on August 12th of 2015. It fronts itself as a public access channel, though with a darker twist to it. It's said to be run by a mysterious group known only as The System. The System mainly uploads in Cave of Shadows, but two prominent users are also NSO, MNBY, and Awake that have their fair share of uploads. The first video uploaded is a mere introduction video. There's nothing really to recap here, as it's just telling you what to expect. The next video is Broadcast 1, which is a 20-minute video emulating a public access channel broken into a few different parts. The first part is an introduction from a character simply titled as the Overwatcher. And boy, is that what we're going with here? As an ex-face in the void, I've got to go in on this. I understand the entire aesthetic you're going for here is like no money broadcast station, but you gotta do a little better than an MS Paint looking face. Stretch your artistic legs, have some fun with it, make something weird. You're not exactly trying to be subtle with the horror aspect, seeing as the channel emblem is an ominous hand with a next to it. That aside, after the beginning announcements, we've got a segment called Now You Know. We've got a small documentary about a man with a birth defect, a parasitic twin that grew on his face. Honestly, it's really interesting, but it has nothing to do with the series. So we move on to the next segment called Mr. Giraffe, a piece that feels right out of the creepypasta titled 1999. No budget, no audio, with a very blunt message about being careful, as Mr. Giraffe learns that some mistakes cost you. Man, this still drags on, doesn't it? Still going. Alright, let's fast forward. The next segment is a weather broadcast that drags on even longer than the bleeding part in Mr. Giraffe. Honestly, it's almost comical how long it takes for anything to happen. Eventually, we get to a sudden cut saying, "Hey, it's me. I checked. The Overwatcher stopped watching the broadcast. I need to confirm that this is a good way to communicate privately. We need to wait until the next broadcast to relay any serious information." Before switching back to the dragging, repeating weather, the rest of the broadcasts are particularly not noteworthy. Relaxation is a few minutes of nothing but stock footage and a few feel-good phrases, and the broadcast ends while the poem known as For the Bees is read out. Finally, it closes with another message from the Overwatcher, thanking us for watching. So one clear problem from the get-go is the notable amounts of dead air. Sure, you're showing something, but you're not telling us something, you know? Don't get me wrong, there's really nothing wrong with the downtime to build atmosphere or suspense, I get it. For instance, Marble Hornets is like 40% people walking around the woods with nothing happening. Though that walking around is for a purpose, it builds the atmosphere. This is just dull. Now, I know it might be coming across as a bit harsh. After all, this is the first upload. Maybe it gets better. It does not. So the next upload is Unforeseen Delay, which is an apology video for the second broadcast being delayed. It also ends with this, telling us to decode it. Which, frankly, I'm not sure what there is to decode. Lighting the image reveals a generic Freemason symbol made of letters and numbers, but just nothing really to decode with it. It doesn't mean anything. The comments don't really seem to say anything about it, nor does the wiki. It just feels entirely out of place to try and come off as some kind of mystery. Next comes Something Happened, in which we're introduced to an Xavier, explaining that something prevented the broadcast from being posted, causing yet another delay. Finally, months overdue, the next broadcast is up. We start with a message from the Overwatcher and begging for money. Look, I get it. You want to make this worth your time, and money can help increase production value. But my friends, this is only your second real video. You can't just go blatantly asking for money so soon, it just comes off as tactless. Which reminds me, this is my third real video, so it's free game, and I have a Patreon, so if you like hearing my voice, consider throwing money at me. Please, this room is really expensive. If I don't make rent, they're going to take away my record player. Anyhoozle. Next we have the Now You Know segment to start again. This time it's not as interesting, simply showing a gazelle escaping a tiger. And listen to me bring up parts where nothing interesting happens, it's gonna get tiring real quick. So let's start skipping to the parts that actually matter. This episode of Mr. Giraffe shows our favorite hand puppet on a walk and telling us that his parents told him to look out for strangers. Amidst the footage of him playing, we get cuts of footage of someone stalking under the playground, licking the moon, and being quite interested in a tree. During the last clip, the word forgotten is shown just outside of the aspect ratio. So the video notes that Mr. Giraffe was having too much fun and stopped looking out for strangers. A mistake that once again cost him. We cut to Mr. Giraffe with a bloodied stick impaled through him, which we linger on for another comical amount of time. Next up is another weather forecast, which is cut thankfully short by being censored by the Overwatcher. It's almost like trying to broadcast a hidden message on the show that he runs and watches is a bad idea or something. Instead, we skip straight to Blank Room, where the series introduces something called Somnum, which is simply Latin for sleep. Though this too is cut short due to technical difficulties and has nothing to do with the series as it never comes up again. Up next is Relaxation. Again, nothing happens, so instead we go to a segment called Orientation, written in base 64. Little is shown here besides someone walking and cuts to running water and more base 64 sprinkled in the video. It says, listen closely. Can you hear it? There are voices in the water. He's watching you. He sees everything. Yes, they made that typo, not me. The next segment is for the System Fall Festival, but it's censored by the Overwatcher. So instead, we get more cryptic footage in base 64, which leads us to this website, which is way too shady looking for me to go downloading from. So did you know that Scare Theater also did a review on this? He was willing to download this little game, so I'm going to timestamp that part of his video in the description, because I ain't touching that shady shit. If you're truly interested in seeing where the story is going, I'd recommend going watching his videos, as I'm really not here to touch upon the story that much. Don't worry, I'll wait. Or if you don't want that, I'm gonna move along here. From here on out, we're picking up the pace for two reasons. One, this isn't Voices Reviews every aspect of a bad ARG, this is what not to do in an ARG, and so far, we haven't touched really on what it does wrong. Mostly because I wanted to lay the groundwork, let you get a feel for the series. You want the rest, I'll leave you a link in the description. For the sake of brevity, or whatever the closest to my rambling self can get to that, I'm gonna start giving you the Spark Notes version. Broadcast 3 starts with another message from the Overwatcher and another You Know More segment. While the tone is significantly darker, there's really nothing to take away from this. Then we get another Mr. Giraffe segment of our local giraffe once again making a fatal mistake. Weather report is once again censored, and then we get a new segment, Story Time with NSO NMBY, or Nasambi as I'm going to say, because it's much easier to call him that. So this segment is quite akin to the Mr. Giraffe segments, but with actual narration. It follows a penguin, oh so cleverly named Penguin, taking a walk around a park until he remembers that
memories are so great, don't you agree? Especially Penguin's favorite when long after the game ended, he took him into the little boy's room and helped him.
Oh no, this is gonna be one of these. So, I guess we're talking about this again. Well, at least this time the creators aren't the ones inappropriately interacting with the children. Adam. Still, dropping this on the audience is kinda heavy. Especially when in the end, it means nothing to the story. Nothing comes of this. If you're gonna try and add some kind of shock value to your series, it really shouldn't come in the form of alluding to sexual assault of a minor, especially with no relevance to the story. It just comes off as juvenile and tasteless, you know? Which isn't the only time the series makes a mistake with a child, but we're gonna come back to that real soon, don't worry. The broadcast continues with radio, which is more filler, another installment of relaxation, which is even more so. The last few seconds of the video leads to this, which is Nsambi from the storytime segment, which gives me a pretty good segue into his channel, which is also part of the series. Well, here's the fun part. So I guess they kind of realized they fucked up or something, but basically all of Nsambi's videos have been privatized, besides I Feel Like a Wound and Pondering on Past Mistakes, which makes it a bit hard to show video examples, but hey, did I mention that Scare Theater did a video in the series? Of course I did. So I'm just gonna be swiping a few screen stills from that. Love you, Eric, please don't sue me. Link to his video in the description. Oh, actually, before I continue, you may be wondering why I'm going so hard in the series, and here's the reason. Well, you know, besides the unfounded need to use some child molestation at shock value, the begging for money in the second video, and, well, that reason would be how much the series really wanted to be covered by horror reviewers. As Scare Theater says in one of his videos, the creators of this basically begged for attention by showing the initials for Eric Wise and Nick Nocturne, and if you think that's a bit of a stretch, one of the passwords for lore-related files in this ARG is literally Scare Theater Nightmind. So yeah, they wanted attention real bad, and unfortunately, they're getting attention from me. And I'm gonna take the piss out of them as much as I can for this. Yeah, I get that you want attention, we all do. We all want to make content that's recognized. Though name-dropping people like this isn't the way to go. It's one thing you're simply referred to them as a passive thing, but making a crucial part of your story comes off like you're begging for them to look at you. Like a kid wanting their parent to watch them do something. But getting back to the story proper, we're gonna be talking about Nsambi. One notable video is the Snowskin video. It's just a video of a camera that swings wildly around a fan and shows a foot at the end. Now this video, and a few others that they upload, may have a strange, familiar feeling. If you don't get what I'm getting at,
I gave you a home. Now you live here. You're ungrateful. You live here.
this isn't something that went unnoticed. One video from Nsambi says, in Base 64, we are not Sunkin, one of the many names of Meat Sleep. We are the system. The rest of the series from the channel didn't really contribute much. Most of them were simply someone, assumedly the titular Nsambi, walking around places and posting a bunch of stuff in Base 64. You might notice that he likes to use that a lot, and there are two videos that are noteworthy, but I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. I have something else I want to cover before I get into that. Nsambi doesn't really add too much to the story, just walking around talking in coded messages, which doesn't really add much, though he's not the worst offender. The worst offender is the third edition of the series, simply going by the name Awake. Awake is a fun part to talk about, because of one interesting little factoid. Yeah, the channel doesn't exist anymore. I think they realized they added quite literally nothing to the story, and if you want to see what the videos held, once again, Scare Theater. I hate to keep bringing him up, but I couldn't find anything else archiving these videos. For Nsambi and Awake, his videos are the only thing is proving these two had a part to play in the series. Such a fragile state of existence, isn't it? So if you want to save a bit of time though, I'll tell you what the videos held. Goddamn nothing. It's just the same thing being said over and over in various forms, through Base 64, Hex, reverse text, spectrograms, reversed audio, you name it. They've used it to tell you the same thing over and over. If their method of approach feels familiar but you can't quite put your fingers on it, let me pinpoint exactly what I think they're going for. If it's not become abundantly clear, the Cave of Shadows series is a bit of a mess of imitation. It's clearly inspired by the tropes of bigger ARGs with no idea how to actually use them. Let's discuss what they copy and why it works for them. A few videos from Nsambi, especially Snowskin, are trying to invoke Meat Sleep, though what made Meat Sleep work is the ambiguity of it all. Until the series was suddenly cancelled and was explained, it wasn't easy to tell if it was an ARG or if it was the product of a deranged mind. Nsambi just feels like it was going for that without an actual point to it. Nsambi also really liked to use Base 64, as does Cave of Shadows and replied in the comments. Now Base 64 is used in a fair number of amateur ARGs, but I feel like the one it's trying to invoke the most is Tribe 12. The reason why is that Tribe 12 also uses it quite liberally, though I think it had a good reason to be used there. Base 64 looks complex, but it's actually a really easy thing to decode. There's plenty of decoders on the internet that you type it into and get your answers. Most notably, it was used by a character called the Observer, who spends the first part of the series trying to make himself come across as smarter than he is, hence using a complex-looking computer language. That, and he used it frequently in images, where you can't simply copy and paste it into a decoder. As you can tell, it's a pain to manually type it all out one character at a time, and it wastes a lot of time. Frankly put, the Observer is using it primarily just to be an asshole. Here in Cave of Shadows, it's being used in a way that doesn't serve the story at all. It doesn't come across as mysterious, it's simply used because other ARGs are using it. Awake mostly comes off as a To The Art clone, using various methods to encrypt messages and have to be solved to be understood. Though Awake doesn't quite seem to have a reason to be doing this. The messages they encrypt never come off as anything useful, they never tell you anything of note, they never have a purpose. To The Arc had a very distinct purpose. While the channel was partially to taunt Jay and Marble Hornets, it was also used as a way to pass along messages. To The Arc wasn't a single person, it was a collective of a handful of people, each of which had a different video style and used various methods to pass along information without outside eyes being able to figure it out too quickly. Awake is just doing it because someone else did it. It may seem harsh to blatantly accuse them of near plagiarism, but mind that these are the same people that were begging for attention from horror viewers. I feel like that they thought if they came across as mysterious enough, somebody would bite and give them exposure. Honestly, I just end the video here. Like I said, this isn't a big analysis of the series. This is a video telling you what not to do when you make an ARG. In short, have a decent artist if you're going to use custom assets. Don't beg for money at the start of your series. Don't go copying other ARGs without understanding why they do what they do. Don't have pointless filler that adds nothing. And God forbid, don't hint at something as bad as sexual exploitation of a minor for shock value. Just a few basic things. Though that last one reminds me. I need to follow up on that last thing about In a Zombie that I didn't touch on before we wrap this up, because it's the biggest don't do this that I could possibly think of. In one of his videos, the description simply reads 1986, 1999, 2000. A scare theater says, these dates correspond with 3 specific events: the birth of a child named Michael Dunahee, the year he went missing, and the year his family put out a public announcement. Mind, you may think this is a coincidence, just a bunch of numbers on a channel that already abuses them. Surely they wouldn't be dumb enough to use one of Canada's most prolific missing child cases, one that still gets talked about to this day for their internet story, would they? Well, there's this video anniversary. At first it's just someone walking through a park, and Scare Theater believes it's the same one from the Mr. Penguin video. Right at the end though, it shows a video of Michael Dunahee before he went missing. So yeah, they really did that. Alright. Right then. I just need to ask, what the actual fuck? What part of you thought this would be a good idea? What part of you thought, I'm gonna incorporate this real case of a missing child whose family is still grieving and add it to my otherwise pointless story? Was it the craving for attention you were looking for? Just hoping that something so controversial or something that people would be looking into would bring eyes to your channel about... What is this channel even about? No, like, seriously, what is the central theme of this channel? Point is, probably the biggest don't fucking do this I can imagine is using a genuine, real-life tragedy in a little online game of pretend. Especially when the character that introduces the concept was introduced by heavily hinting at child molestation. It really doesn't paint a good picture. Frankly, it makes you look like an idiot and an asshole at best, and morally reprehensible at worst. I could talk about the rest of the broadcasts and the soft reboot / season 2 the channel tried to do, but I'm not going to waste my time. There's no coming back or redeeming yourself from dropping that ball this hard. Besides, the series never saw a proper conclusion. It's likely that they simply gave up on it, be it loss of passion or I'm assuming negative attention. With that being said, this has been the Voices in Your Headphones. Just to let you guys know, I've started a Discord that you can join. I'm always looking for new things to dig into and talk about, so if you have any ideas, just follow the link in the description and tell me about it. The last 2 videos I've made have been pretty negative, so I'd love to look into something underrated that deserves praise. Next thing I have planned to do is remaking my old SNCH review, now that I know how to actually properly make a video. It's an interesting series, and it deserves a better look than I gave it. With that said, I'm the Voices in Your Headphones, and it's time for me to once again go quiet. Don't worry though, I'll come gnawing at the back of your mind soon enough. Until next time.